What's up, guys? So today I'm going to be talking about my top 5 tips for Air Force basic training. So I have compiled a list of my top 5 tips that I think would be helpful for people who are getting ready to go to Air Force basic training or are thinking about joining or just generally have questions. I made a list and I honestly had about 50, but I figured it would be a lot better to just smush it down into 5 of my top most important tips because nobody wants to listen to an hour-long video on YouTube. So tip number 1 is learn the Air Force song and the Airman's Creed. The Air Force song, you only need to learn the first verse of it. You only ever sing the first verse, but you sing the Air Force song and you say the Airman's Creed every single morning. They're not that difficult to learn, but it's very helpful to know them before you go, because when you first get there, there's a lot of things that you're going to be confused about and a lot of new things that you need to learn and need to know. And just through like exhaustion and stress and everything else, it's just helpful to have a few less things that you need to stress out about or feel like you need to be like, oh my gosh, I need to learn this. Like, if you don't know what the Air Force song and Airman's Creed are, you could easily go Google them. You could find them on airforce.com, or what I did was I downloaded the United States Air Force Delayed Entry Program app. It's a free app. Your recruiter might have told you about it, but it's a free app and it has so much information about basic training on it. It has the Air Force song on it and it has the Airman's Creed. And I'm pretty sure it sings the Air Force song too on it as well. So you can actually learn it. But it has a lot of really useful information on it. And again, it's a free app. And it has a few other things on it that I'm going to talk about in my next couple tips. So that is going to be a very useful app to remember. And I highly suggest that you download it before you go to basic training and look over everything that's in it. And tip number 2 is going to be always say yes ma'am, yes sir, no ma'am, no sir. Always use ma'am and sir, and you never just want to say yes or no, and you definitely don't want to ever say yeah. If you say yeah, you're either gonna get ignored or you're just gonna get yelled at a lot, because there's a couple things that they really just like don't let you say and do, and just being like responding to someone and just being like yeah, like it's disrespectful to them. So you always want to say yes ma'am and yes sir. And another thing to go along with that tip is I would highly suggest learning your reporting statement. Your reporting statement is sir or ma'am, trainee so and so reports as ordered. And that's what you're gonna say every single time you talk to an MTI or pretty much anyone there who's like above you, like in authority. You're definitely always gonna be using your reporting statement. You're never just gonna go up to somebody and start talking to them. So I would highly suggest learning that and getting comfortable with it before you go, because there's a lot of people who get there and they mess it up or they don't say it, and that's another really big reason that people get yelled at. I would highly suggest learning that and getting comfortable with it before you go, because there's a lot of people who get there and they mess it up or they don't say it, and that's another really big reason that people get yelled at. So just getting used to saying your reporting statement and learning your reporting statement is going to be very, very helpful. That's another thing that is on the Delayed Entry Program app. If you don't know what it is, or you don't remember it, or you just want to like look over it, whatever, if you go on the app, there's literally a link on the side that says reporting statement. Click on it and it'll show you exactly what it is, but it's extremely simple. You just have to get used to saying it. And when you're under pressure, you know, you forget things or you jumble up your words, and you just don't want to get stuck in a situation where you're getting yelled at for something like as simple as that. You know, always say yes ma'am, yes sir, never say yeah, and always use your reporting statement. So tip number 3 is stay under the radar. There's a lot of mixed opinions about that, but I definitely recommend to stay under the radar and don't try and get yourself noticed in the first couple weeks. That's good that you want to stand out as doing well and all that, but I definitely suggest that you don't try to volunteer for everything, step up and be like, I know what I'm doing, like I know everything, do well, and if you naturally stand out from doing well, then that's great. But volunteering for everything and trying to step up and tell other people what to do or acting like you know everything is not going to make you look good. Because if you get noticed and if you stand out, like in the first couple weeks, you may very well end up being the person who you might end up being the person who gets yelled at the most and made an example out of the most. And you don't want that. You don't want to be the person who's always getting picked on and all that. So I would suggest for the first couple weeks, definitely stay under the radar. Don't try to stand out, volunteer for everything, be the best, most important person in your flight. Do the best you can, follow the rules, but don't worry too much about standing out as the best, because there'll be time for that later. You can stand out academically, in physical training, in marksmanship, all that awesome stuff, but that will come later once you learn your role and you learn everything, like all the basics. So there will be a time to stand out, but don't try to do it in the first couple weeks. Tip number 4 is go physically prepared. I highly suggest looking up the Air Force standards for PT and meeting them before you even leave to go to basic training, like being able to pass the basic PT test for the Air Force before you even leave. So your PT test is going to consist of a 1.5 mile run, how many push-ups you can do in a minute, how many sit-ups you can do in a minute, and then how many pull-ups you can do. If you can't do any pull-ups, don't freak out about it, don't worry about it. When I graduated basic, it didn't matter whether or not you could do pull-ups. It mattered for your scores as a flight, but it's not a factor in whether or not you're going to be able to pass basic training. You can pass the physical part of basic training without being able to do any pull-ups. My suggestions are to make sure that you're running at least 3 times a week before you leave for basic training. If you get into the delayed entry program for the Air Force, and let's say you get in March and you're not leaving until July, because that's what I did. I started training right away. I mean, I was already kind of somebody who spent a lot of time in the gym and stuff, but as far as like, oh, I should probably start running, I should probably start doing push-ups. As soon as I got into the delayed entry program, I started preparing myself. So I would say as soon as you know that you're gonna leave, definitely start preparing yourself. Don't wait until last minute, and don't wait until you get there. Like, yes, that's what basic training is for, but it doesn't hurt to prepare a little bit more, because there are people who go in thinking that they can do everything that they need to do and go from 0 to a passing score in those 8 weeks. And there are people who don't, and they don't graduate basic training, and they can't get into the Air Force because they didn't physically prepare. I'm not going to talk too extensively on the physical training part, because I am planning on making a separate video that is solely based on how to prepare for the physical part of basic training, how to do well, get the scores that you want. So I'm not going to talk too much about that now, but I definitely wanted to make that one of my top 5 points, was that you should go physically prepared. Last but definitely not least, tip number 5 is don't be sensitive. Whether it's your MTI, any part of leadership, somebody in your flight, somebody in another flight, don't be sensitive about confrontation and people telling you what to do or anything like that. As far as MTIs go, you cannot be sensitive. Like, you have to have a little bit of thicker skin, and you have to be able to handle getting yelled at. So just remember that yelling at you is literally their job, and you can't take it personally, and you can't be sensitive about it. They're yelling at you to intimidate you purposefully. They're trying to break you down so they can build you back up into the airman that they want you to be. So they're not doing it because you're a horrible person or you're doing a terrible job or anything like that. They're doing it because they truly want you to be better. Everybody gets yelled at. Every single person is going to get yelled at probably on a daily basis. There's no way, even if you think you're perfect, think you're the best airman there, you know what you're doing, there's no way you're gonna get by without getting yelled at. And you can't let it beat you down or make you think like that training isn't worth it, or that you're not gonna be able to finish, or you just can't let it discourage you, really. Basic training is only 8.5 weeks long, and yes, it is like your foundation for the Air Force, but basic training is not a accurate reflection of what life is like in the Air Force. It's not a good representation of how life is going to be 24/7. I know a lot of people got really discouraged saying like, why did I join the Air Force? Like, I don't know why I did this. Like, this sucks. I don't like it. But it's so different. Even after basic training, tech school gets better. And after tech school, the operational Air Force is way better. It's not something that you need to be discouraged about, thinking just because you don't like basic training that you're going to hate the Air Force. I don't think anybody really liked basic training. I mean, I didn't think it was bad, but yeah, just don't get discouraged and don't be sensitive. Don't take things personally. So those are my top 5 tips to maybe help you a little bit through basic training or help you prepare a little bit better. I know it wasn't a lot. I was trying to keep this video short. I'm definitely going to be making another video on physical training and another video on more of a what to expect video, which will be a little bit longer, which will kind of take you through the weeks of basic training. If you guys have any additional questions, you can go ahead and drop them in the comments below. If you guys have been to basic training or have anything to put in that maybe I missed, or that you felt differently about, or anything like that, or maybe if something has changed since last year when I went, go ahead and drop that in the comments below as well. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and good luck at basic training.